how the passive voice expresses itself in the English language, right? Or what is it that we call the passive voice? So in the table that we have, you see here we have the category of the tenses, all right? We have the present continuous tense, we have the present simple tense, we have the past continuous, and then we have the past simple tense, and then we have the past perfect tense, and we have the future tense. These are the tenses in which the passive voice expresses itself, okay? Now, in the active table, in the column of the active voice, you see we have an action that is taking place at that time, or that took place at that time that it has been spoken about. For example, when you look at the first row, all right, we have the present continuous, then the active voice is they are sweeping the room now. Present continuous, meaning that action is taking place at the time that we are talking about it, all right? It is taking place at that very time that we are talking about it. Now, what is the passive voice? What would become the passive voice? You see what has changed here now from the active voice to the passive voice. What has changed, all right? Now you see that what was the object. You see now in this sentence here, in the first sentence in the active voice, we have they and we have are, then we have sweeping the room now, okay? Now this one means that this they is the subject, our sweeping is the verb, and the room now, the room is the object, all right? We have the subject, the verb, and the object, all right? So it is the regular sentence formation. But when you look at the passive voice, this has now changed because it is passive, all right? It is passive. We are now putting it in the passive voice, not the active voice, but in the passive voice. So how does it express itself? It's now gonna change. It has changed the subject. You see, the subject has changed from they, all right, are sweeping, and then we have the room. Now, what was the object of the original sentence has changed from the subject, from what was the subject here has now changed, and now we are considering the object, all right? Now we have forgotten the subject. The subject is they. We are talking about these people here who are sweeping the room. So now the subject here has changed. We no longer need the subject. We are now focusing on the object. So what was the object now becomes the subject. The room is being swept now. Where is being swept now? This one is coming from are. They are sweeping the room, because now we are talking about the object. Now it changes. Are changes, is being swept. And you see the verb to sweep has also changed from its original sweeping, present continuous, and then it has gone to the past. All right? But it's still, the passive voice is still expressing the present continuous tense in its expression. So ideally, we have this one as our present continuous. This one is a present continuous tense. Is being swept. They are sweeping. Is being swept. All right? The only thing that has changed here is that now we have forgotten the subject they. So this time we don't talk about it. So when we are talking about the passive voice, we totally forget about the subject. And we use what was the object to now be the subject of the sentence. But we are still speaking about the room being swept. All right? So when we go to the second column, in the second column, we have the present simple tense. In the present simple tense, we are talking about an action that is taking place at the present. So here they say they sweep the room every day. Present simple. It happens. It's an occasional thing. They sweep the room every day. All right. Now, when we go to the passive voice, you see now the subject has been forgotten. They has been forgotten. All right. And then we have the room is swept every day. They sweep the room every day. The room is swept every day. When we come to the past continuous tense, you see that in the active voice, we say they were sweeping the room. They were sweeping the room. And then in the active voice, we have the room was being swept. They are sweeping the room. The room was being swept. Then we go back to the passive voice here. The past, the past simple tense. In the past simple tense, we have our active voice as they swept the room. Past simple. They swept the room. Okay? We're talking about an action that happened in the past. So we say they swept the room. So our passive voice is going to be the room was swept. They swept the room was swept. When we come to the past perfect, we have they have just swept the room. They have just swept the room. And then in the passive voice, we have the room has just been swept. They have just swept the room. The room has just been swept. Then in the future tense, we have they will sweep the room. They will sweep the room. And then in the passive voice, we have the room will be swept now. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to write this one here. So you can write it. If you've not understood, if you've not heard any word, if you don't understand any word here, then raise up your hand. I will see you on the screen and I'll help you out. Yes, Anisha. Anisha.
Just some of us have the work.
Some of you have the work. Sorry?
The exact same notes on the board.
The exact same notes on the board.
Yes.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Then we can continue with the rest that do not have it. Because I know some of you do not have it. Okay. Now Kenya, Ramina. Ramina. Yes, Ramina, you can talk to us.
Teacher, when do we use by?
When do we? Rahima, when do we use by?
Use by.
For example, give me an example of the by that you're talking about.
When do we use by?
Give me an example of a sentence here. Ramina,
yes.
Give me an example of a sentence where you want us to use by, and then I will explain when we use by and when we don't use it.
Sandra is sweeping the room.
Okay, here let me see this one. Kusime has written the room is being swept by. Okay, I now get what you're trying to mean. I'll get to you, Remina. I'm going to get to you. You can mute yourself. All right, Teta promise. Teta, I'm with you, Teta. Teta. Okay, let me see Namara. Namara. Namara, speak to us.
Teacher,
Yes, please.
like if I say teacher Khamis is beating Namara, so can you, no, teacher, no, like if I say he is beating Namara.
Okay, and then? All right, I think that's it for now. When I go back to Teta Promise and I think who was it, Remina? Yeah, when I go to Remina and Teta, you guys were trying to, I think, ask why we don't put here by them. I think that was your question, all right? When do we use by? The room is being swept by them. Now, the rule is, because the entire idea here is that we are trying to forget the subject of the original sentence in the active voice. The passive voice has a trick that we forget about the subject of the original sentence. And then we focus on the object. What was the object of the original sentence now becomes the subject, all right? Now, we do not use by them. It is okay to say by them, but now by them becomes an indirect object, all right? It becomes an indirect object to the verb being swept. So this one here is totally forgotten. It is okay to leave it out. For example, if somebody now says, the girls are sweeping the room now, all right? The girls are sweeping the room now. In the passive voice, it is going to be, the room is being swept, all right? The people who are sweeping the room, the ones taking on the action are not so important in the passive voice. However, if you use it and say the girls are sweeping the room is being swept by the girls, it's okay. In English, it is okay. But it is advisable to leave out what was the original subject, because the entire idea is that we forget about the subject and then we focus on the object. What was the object of the original sentence now becomes the subject. Have you understood? I believe yes, you have. Okay, if you have that table, then we can proceed. So we are saying that the sentences that you see in the second column, all right? The sentence that you see in the third, okay, column. These ones, okay, let's forget about this one. I will say second column. When I say second column, we mean this column here. So the sentences in the second column have the same meaning. These ones have the same meaning with those in the first column. They have not changed. The expression is the same. The manner of expression is different. The idea that has been expressed is the same, but the manner in which it has been expressed is different. How different has it been? That these ones are expressed in the active voice, but the ones in the second column have been expressed in the passive voice. So that's where the difference comes in, okay? But the whole idea is the same. When you look at this sentence here and this one, they are the same. Why? Because they are all sentences of the present continuous tense. And number two, they are all sentences that are expressing the same thing about sweeping the room. What is different here is the doer of the action. The doer of the action, who is the subject, has been forgotten here. But we still have the sweeping of the room at that very time. So that is what is important. Can everyone see, teacher? Yeah, I think everyone can see me. Those ones who cannot see me, please adjust your screens and maybe try to get proper internet. Yes, Ramina, again, you have raised your hand.
Teacher, so
Yeah.
when you know the subject, you just ignore also like that.
Of course, we just ignore. In the passive voice, even if we don't put by, even if we forget this one here, we can forget it and we do not use it. That is okay. But even when we use it, it does not cause alarm. It does not cause alarm. But what is important is that in the passive voice, the trick is that we forget the subject of the subject here of the sentence. We forget it, and then we use what was the object now becomes the subject. So by them, you can either use it or you may not use it. Teacher, I have just come in. I am lost. Okay, those ones who have just come in, I'm saying we are talking about the passive voice. We want to see how the passive voice expresses itself in the English language. And we are saying that it comes from the active voice. The passive voice comes from the active voice. These here are the tenses in which, the tenses that can help us deal with a passive voice. Am I supposed to write this in my class workbook? Yes, you are. You are supposed to write in your class workbook. So these are the tenses here. These are the active sentences. And then these ones are the passive sentences. I think now I've answered you. Okay, so we said by they express. All right, I'll read your charts later. Let me, because we are out of time. I'll read your charts later. And so we're saying that they express it in different ways with the help of a special form of the verb called the passive voice. All right. Every tense has a passive voice as well as the more common active voice. The passive voice is particularly useful when we are not interested in the doer of the action. Thus, when we say the room is being swept, I am interested in the action itself, not in the person who is doing it. So what we are saying is, when we are using the passive voice, we are not interested in the doer of the action, but rather the action itself. All right? We want to see the action that is taking place, but we do not want to focus so much on the doer of that action. Okay, so when you say by them, when we use by them, here the trick is we do not want to see the doer of the action, but we are interested in the action itself. The room is being swept now. So we are interested in the action than the doer of the action. Okay. Have you all written this? I'm going to unmute you and then see if we can. Sanamdara, come and help me unmute these guys. Because okay. Chirabi. Where one? All right. So has everyone written this so we can proceed and go on?
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, teacher.
All right.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes, please. Aisha Seguya, I'm with you.
Yes,
Call
teacher,
for-
we have A.
Okay, okay, okay. You can ask that. I have people in the class, so when you see me talking to other people, don't mind. I have people in the class.
Why aren't you including the subject and the focus and
Yes, because the entire idea is that when we use the passive voice, it is a special verb where when we use it, we do not focus on the subject of the sentence. We look at the object and then we are most interested in the action rather than the doer of that action. All right. It is one way of changing. You see, this is one way of creating class. Using the passive voice is one way of being creative, having more alternatives and different ways in which to approach things. Let me hear from Vivian. Vivian, yes, you can speak.
Teacher,
Yes, Vivian.
in passive voice, is it correct to say we are being given all sorts of things without removing the subject?
Now you have gone to the second, you have jumped onto the second passive voice. I am coming to that, Vivian. Yes. We have just, you said we have just.
We are being given all sorts of things.
Yes, all sorts of things. We are being given all sorts of things. Then all sorts of things have been given to us. We are being given all sorts of things. All sorts of things have been given to us. I think that's what you're trying to mean. Have I answered you, Vivian? You went off. Akampa Wendy. Wendy, you are the last one to ask and then we proceed.
Teacher, I was
Yes,
asking, like, if they give us an example of, let's say Sarah is watering the plants, then if I say the plants are being watered, would it still be correct without mentioning the name Sarah?
Yes, it will still be corrected. Why? We are only interested in the action, all right? Sarah is watering the plants or the flowers. So in the passive voice, we're going to say the flowers or plants are being watered. You see? But when you put by Sarah, it is okay. But then the idea is we want that the focus is laid in the action itself rather than the doer of that very action. Okay? All right. Now let's consider these two concepts, and then we can maybe understand from this perspective. Let's have A. If we have A here and they say the past participle, past participle is always used. Past participle is always used in every tense of the passive voice. In every tense of the passive brackets, you can have swept. Examples. And that's the words. Okay, now here, let's do it like that. Now, when you look at the points that I've given here, points to note, I am saying that here, the past perfect, rather the past participle is always used in every tense of the passive voice. Those are points to note, that we are going to use the past participle in every tense of the passive voice. How does that happen? Let's go back to the table we wrote in the books. Let's go back to the table and see that. When you look at the first one, present continuous, I want us to follow this principle here that the past participle is always used in every tense of the passive voice. Let's go back to the present continuous tense. Look at the active voice. The active voice is saying they are sweeping the room now. And now the passive voice has the room is being swept. So why are we using that passive, participle? Because that is the principle. The principle is that the verb in the passive voice has to appear in the past participle. So we always use the past participle. All right. So when you look at the sentence, that sentence, that passive column, look at the column that has the passive voice, and we look at the verbs here, then we shall see that it is true that in every tense of the passive voice, we use the past participle. Here it goes. Being swept in the first row of the present continuous, rather, yes, present continuous, being swept, all right? Being swept is different from being swept. When you say has been swept, that one is in the past, but this one is being swept. Clear on that? So we have the second one, present simple. We have is swept, is swept, is swept. That one is also a participle, a past participle. When we go to the third one, present continuous, was being swept, was being swept. So you see again, it is in the past participle. The verb is in the past participle form. When we go to the fourth one, which has the simple, the past simple, again we have was swept, was swept. So if we have a different, if we have a regular verb here, not sweeping, but if we had a regular verb here that has, for example, take, maybe took is also not regular because take is not regular because it also has took and then it has taken. But there are those verbs there whose past is expressed with a D or ED. Those ones there. Then in the participle they have the EN. All right. If we had, for example, a verb of that kind, then we would have realized. For example, if we took on which verb? Which verb now? Huh? Choose. Yes. If we now have choose, then in the past we have chose. Now here the participle is supposed to be chosen. For example, if the room was chosen, if they are choosing, let's use choosing. Now, if the word here replace sweeping with the choosing. So if we are saying they are choosing the room now, here in the passive voice, we're going to have the room is being chosen. See that one? So when we have chosen there, that means it is a participle. It is a past participle. That's what I'm talking about. That the points to note are that the verb, the past participle is always used in every tense of the passive voice. That's what we're dealing with. So swept here in the above example, for example, we are using swept here as the past participle. We're not using it as the past tense, but the past participle. This is where the rule is. So we are saying thus, the word swept alone tells us nothing about the tense of the verb. So we need to have modifying verbs, modifying words that are going to modify this word here, swept, to make it, teacher, can you please move to the side a bit? I can't see the board. Okay. So this verb here, swept, has to be modified a bit. It has to be modified so that we can have a past participle form of the verb. For example, How are we modifying this one? When you look at the first sentence there in the present continuous, under the column of the passive voice, we have is being. Where we have being is swept. Now that one here is a modification. There is that auxiliary that has come before the verb swept itself. So that auxiliary classifies this verb here, swept, to a past participle expression. I think you get that. Then when we go to number 2, we have is swept. You can see that. We have is swept. So the verb that auxiliary is modifying the verb swept, all right, to have a past participle form of expression. Then when we go to number 3, we have the room was being swept. You see, in every tense, or rather in every sentence of the passive voice, the word swept is not alone. It has been modified a bit. And so are there's so many verbs that we shall always need, right? So the rule is that in the passive voice, we use the past participle form of the verb, right? In every tense of the passive voice. Point number 2. Note number 2 is that the passive voice always begins with a tense of the verb to be. Right? The passive always begins with a tense of the verb to be. Again, when you look at those sentences there, the verb to be expresses itself with the is, are, was, being. You see that? And will be. In the future, we have will be. Okay? So, and then I put this and said, make sure you can pronounce being and being correctly. Why? If we don't pronounce them correctly, then we are going to have trouble in trying to find out what we want to follow. I think you have this right. Can we proceed? Can we proceed? Okay, let me unmute you here, and I hear the proceeding, yes, and those ones who are saying no, and you shout at once in your able computers. Can we now proceed, class?
Yes,
Yes,
teacher.
Yes,
teacher.
Yes,
Yes.
teacher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Teacher.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now, I want to answer the question of those ones who were asking me, when do we use by, or should we use by when we are dealing with a passive voice? In the first place, I said the trick is that we are forgetting the subject in the sentence, and we are getting what was the original, what was the object now to become the subject of this sentence, of the passive voice rather. Now, let's look at the passive with by. The passive voice with by. When we use the passive voice with by, the passive with the by, when do we use it? So if we want to indicate the doer of the action, which is not the principal in the passive voice, we do not want to know the doer of the action. But if we want to indicate the doer of the action, then that is when we use by. And what are some of the cases that can make us use this? So we are saying that the passive is followed by the word by. When we wish to indicate the doer of the action. Therefore, if we are talking about a certain book, for example, we could say it was written by so and so. It was published by so and so. It was sold by so and so, and it was bought by so and so. So this is how we can go with the use of by. So we are saying that we use by when we want to indicate the doer of the action. But remember, the passive voice here, we said that the passive voice is used, right? We said that the passive voice is useful when we are not interested in the doer of the action. If we are not interested in the doer of the action, if we are not interested in that subject that does the action, then we use the passive voice. But in the passive voice, if you pick interest in the passive voice to look at the doer of the action or to indicate the doer of the action, then this is when we use by. Okay, I think I've answered you. Now let's look at this table. Let's look at this other simple table. It's a very simple one, don't worry. It's a very simple one. It's a very, very simple table. It's not as complex as the first one. So we have that first column. Actually, we can have it there. We have the second column, and we have the third column. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have 4 columns there. The first one, let's put the house. So this one is the subject, the house, all right? Now we're going to see the doer of the action, but now the doer of the action is now not going to be the subject. Later on, I'll show you where we have direct objects and indirect objects. Now this one is the house, right? Now we're going to look at the verb. The house, one, is being. You can write is being. The house is being, has been. The house has been. The house will be. The house will be. And then the house was. All right. Then the verb here we can say painted, is being painted, has been painted, will be painted, was painted. Then we have built, is being built, was built. Then we have sold, is being sold. Then we have opened, then we have broken down, We have broken down. Then we can say by the town council, by the town council, the town council. Now this one can help answer your questions of when do we use by, okay? When you look at this table here, what are they feeling with you? Now here we go. The house is being painted by the town council. The house has been painted by the town council. The house will be painted by the town council. The house was painted by the town council. Still, something happens with the house is being built by the town council. The house has been built by the town council. The house has been sold by the town council. The house will be sold by the town council, and the house will be opened by the town council. The house is being opened by town council. The house is, you see, when you look at these expressions here, they are helping us to see when we use by. In this case here, we want to see the doer of the action. But remember, when we use the passive voice, we are not interested in the doer of the action. But when we are interested to know, to find out who the doer of the action is, then that's when we can use by. However, it is okay to leave it out. Are we writing those sentences like now? Yes, like now, now. Why are you saying you made? Well, what makes you think we are not writing these sentences now? You can draw the table. You can now draw the table. Actually, the trick is you may not write down the sentences. Just draw the table to help you understand that we can use the passive with by when we want to indicate the doer of the action. Actually, note here and say not, say we use by when we want to indicate the doer of the action. When we want to indicate the doer of the action. Are we together? Are we writing? You see, I know some of you have this work already, but try to do it. Are we writing?
Yes.
Teacher. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Keep quiet.
Could you please move?
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing Nabila here. Nabila, you want to ask a question? Please go ahead.
Teacher, is it that you indicate the doer when the name is given?
Yeah. At times when the name is given in the subject, for example, rather if the name is given and in the active voice, if we are changing the active sentence to passive, when we are changing active to passive, we are not interested in the doer of the action. We are interested in the action itself taking place, all right? And then if we have a name, for example, Sarah is sweeping the room now. So we can indicate the room is being swept by Sarah because there's somebody who is, our interest is in Sarah. Our interest is not in the action. This time it is in Sarah. Therefore, we can indicate is being swept by Sarah now. That one is okay. Huh? Yeah, indicate. This word here is indicate. So we say we use by. You can underline it, when we want to indicate the doer. This one is doer. sorry about my handwriting. The doer. This one is doer. Teacher, is it? Okay, let me read your charts briefly as you write. Teacher, is it a must to write the sentences, or we can just use the table? You can just use the table. You can just use the table. Let me see this other chart. Somebody says, can we find these notes on the platform? No, we can get, you can go to Practical English. There's a book, you have a book called Practical English. Look at that book. Teacher, could the work be sent to the WhatsApp group, please? Copy the work. Why don't you want to copy the work? Copy it. Teacher, please move aside. We can't see. Okay. Teacher, teacher, I'm not seeing. Move. Okay. All right. So I think if we have finished that, then we can look at. Do we still have some time? Ayebare, what are you saying? Vivian, you can speak to us.
Teacher,
you can speak to me.
You have said the house is being swept by Sarah now.
I said that the house
is being swept by Sarah now.
Yes, I was just responding to a question that somebody asked, that can we use by when they indicate the name? So I said, yes, it is okay. For example, when we go back to the table, then where we have, they are sweeping the room. Then we have Sarah is sweeping the room. Then I said, the room is being swept by Sarah. So what I was trying to mean is that here, maybe the presenter wants to indicate the doer of the action. But remember, in the first instance I said we do not use by them or by. Why? Because we are not interested in the doer of the action, but rather we are interested in the action itself. Do you understand?
Teacher,
yes.
No, what I mean, you have said the house is being swept by Sarah now. Isn't it a repetition? Say now, and yet the action is still going on.
No, it is not a repetition. Remember, I was speaking it from, look at the table in the present continuous tense. Yes? Look at that table there, where we have, they are sweeping the room now. The room is being swept by Sarah now. I think that one makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to bring out. Okay, can I have, you're welcome. Network again. Will you upload the recording? I don't know, Narukenge, whether it will be possible. Maybe I'll talk to Mr. Namdala and see. Hannah, you have a question, Hannah? Hannah.
Teacher, I am asking which word is after want to on the note.
After note, eh?
No, after want to.
Indicate. Indicate.
Okay.
This one is indicate.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. It is to indicate. Okay. We don't have much time, but I wanted us to add on to another topic that can help us understand the passive voice. Very fast, let's look at the transitive and intransitive verbs. I think you have looked at those ones in class, but we can we are now proceeding. You had different teachers. I was in a different stream. You guys who attended to a different teacher in a different stream. Some teachers had talked about different things before these ones. But now I want us to go and look at them. All right, passes. Sibaga passes. Yes?
Can you use by in the middle of the sentence?
Can we use by?
The middle of the sentence.
For example?
The class, for example, the class is being swept by Sarah now.
That's that one. That one is not in the middle of the sentence. That one by Sarah now. That one is okay because we want to know the doer of the action. We said we use the passive voice when we are interested, all right, to know the doer of the action. But if we are not interested, then that's okay. We can leave it out. The class is being swept. The most important thing is in the verb to sweep, the action, not the doer of the action. All right. In the passive voice, we are interested in the action, not the doer of the action. But where we are tempted to pick interest in understanding who the doer of the action is, then we can use that one by. All right. So let's proceed. Then finally, I will give an exercise to help you understand this thing correctly. Let's look at transitive. Look at transitive and intransitive verbs. Transitive and intransitive verbs. These ones are going to help us understand the passive voice. This topic here will help us understand more on the passive voice. Look at this. If we have a hunter killed. Huh? A hunter, thank you. A hunter killed. When you look at this sentence here, we want to see whether it is a complete sentence or not a complete sentence. All right? Well, we have already studied in the past, we have already studied that a sentence must have a subject. It must have a subject, which subject is either a noun or pronoun. Noun or pronoun. Number two, a proper grammatical sentence has to have a verb. Which verb must be in a certain tense? Must be in a certain tense. All right? Right? And then there is always an object. There's always an object. Now, when we look at the above sentence here has the subject are. a hunter, a hunter. That means one hunter. It has the verb killed. The hunter killed. But then this hunter here, this sentence here now is left hanging. Why is it left hanging? It does not have the object. We do not know what the hunter killed. You see that? We say that a proper sentence in English has to bear a subject, a verb, and an object. This object here is usually affected by the verb. And then why is it affected by the verb? Because it is the subject that carries out this verb here. Teacher, what's the word near tense? Contains. It must contain, it must be in a, sorry, this is a certain. 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 Not the spelling of certain. Yes, it must have a certain tense. All right? Are we there? So we are saying that when we look at a hunter killed, you write that? Yes, you write. Write this, class. Write it in your books so that you don't forget. A hunter killed, we are saying that this sentence is incomplete, not complete. This sentence is not complete. It is not complete. And what does it require now to be complete? What does this sentence require to be complete? This sentence, very beautiful, it requires, and there's somebody responding in class. I have two people here who are studying with us. So when you hear a voice behind, don't worry too much. This name of yours is difficult. You, Michael, okay, Small, speak to us. Michael Small. Michael Small, speak to us. You rose up your hand to speak. Please speak to us. I think we can proceed. You could have left what you wanted to say. So where we have a hunter killed, this sentence is not complete. So what does it require to be complete? So it requires an object. What did the hunter kill? The verb killed, a hunter killed, is left hanging. That means the verb to killed must require an object to make this sentence complete. Is that clear? So where we have that, we are saying, because the hunter must have killed something. In other words, the verb killed needs a noun or pronoun apart from its subject to complete its meaning. For example, a hunter killed an antelope. Here, the object here must also be, or it should also be, a noun stroke, a pronoun. The object here to have a proper sentence. These must be taken in consideration. But remember our example here, a hunter killed, is not complete. Why? Because it lacks a what? It lacks an object, which must be a noun or a pronoun. So to make this sentence, a hunter killed, complete, a hunter must have killed something, all right? So where we have a hunter killed an antelope. A hunter killed an antelope. This one now is a complete sentence. And when it becomes complete there that it has an antelope, the statement, in that statement, a hunter killed an antelope, all right? The noun antelope is said to be the object of the verb killed. The statement is now complete. You see that? Why? Because a hunter killed something. That something is there, an antelope. That is the noun we are talking about. Michael, please speak to us. Michael Small, speak to us. Your hand is up. Speak to us. Okay, that's okay. So in the statement, we have said that where we have a hunter killed an antelope, now this has made the sentence complete. Actually, let me rub off this, and then we have a complete sentence. So we have a hunter killed an antelope. A hunter killed an antelope. You see that? Now this one here is complete. This sentence here is complete. Why? It has the subject, a hunter. You see, it has the subject, it has the verb, and it has the object. This one is the subject. This one is the verb, right? Verb, and then this one is the object. Now the sentence is complete, all right? Now when that one happens in English, all right? Verbs that require an object. Verbs that require an object, like the verb to kill in our sentence, are called transitive verbs. Okay? So when they ask you, what is a transitive verb and an intransitive verb? We shall say transitive verbs are verbs that require an object. All right? A transitive verb is a verb that requires an object. Okay, so to complete the meaning of the verb to kill in this sentence, it requires an object. Kill an antelope, kill a lion, kill what? A monster, killed a baboon, killed you know, and so on and so forth. All right. So we must have an object here. Somebody has a hand up. We must have an object here to make this sentence complete. And therefore, we are saying that transitive verbs are verbs that require an object to complete their meaning. Now we can go back to our table. Or before we go back to the table, let's have this one. Where we have, for example, I can give another example here. And then we have a hunter, or the hunter laughed. The hunter laughed. Now, where we have the hunter laughed, this one here does not require an object. This sentence here is complete. Therefore, the verb, this verb here, laugh, all right, is not a transitive verb. Why is it not a transitive verb? Yes, it does not require an object to make it complete. Divine. Okay, you ran off. Okay, now this one here does not require an object. The hunter laughed. It is very simple. It is as simple as that. The hunter laughed. It carries meaning. There was an action of laughing from the hunter. Therefore, it does not laugh to what? The hunter laughed a laugh. That one does not apply, okay? So we have the hunter laughed. Yes.
The hunter killed an antelope. If I'm to How
Mm.
will I state?
The hunter killed an antelope. An antelope was killed.
Don't talk about
The hunter, the one who killed. That's what we said, that in the passive voice, we are not interested in the doer of the action. We are interested in the action itself. So if we are changing, they were asking me here, what would happen in the passive voice where we have a hunter killed an antelope. A hunter killed an antelope. So what is the passive voice of this one here? The passive voice is going to be an antelope. An antelope was killed. Antelope was killed. If we are interested in who killed the antelope, then we can say by the hunter. But here we are not interested in who killed the antelope. We're interested in the action itself. What happened to the antelope? The antelope was killed. Who killed it? The hunter. But this time the passive voice does not require you to talk about who killed the antelope. The doer of the action is not so important to us. What is important to us is the action. All right? In the passive voice, but I say that even if you added on killed by the hunter, you will not have committed a crime. Why? Because your interest is in knowing who killed the antelope. Teacher, can you repeat that part? I am saying that this is the passive sentence of the active sentence. This is the active. A hunter killed an antelope. So we want to change it to passive. When we are changing it to passive, we shall say an antelope was killed. You see that? An antelope was killed. Why? Because we are interested in this verb here, the action that happened to the antelope. We want to know what happened to the antelope, but we are not interested in the doer of the action. So teacher, like we only involve the subject. So teacher, like we only involve intransitive. Now, I am coming to the intransitive verb, and I'll show you that verbs that are intransitive cannot be in the passive. There's a concept that I want you to understand here. Teacher, I have not understood. What haven't you understood, Anisha? Anisha, you come here and we talk. Come and ask me what you have not understood, Anisha. Raise up your hand and I will unmute you here and you speak. My name was Anisha. Yes, I have unmuted you.
Teacher, transitive verbs from the start.
Anisha, are you paying attention?
Yes, teacher.
So I said that transitive verbs, you stay on, don't mute yourself. I said transitive verbs are verbs that require an object to be complete. Transitive verbs are verbs that require an object. Intransitive verbs are verbs that do not require an object. So the first sentence, Anisha, that we gave was a hunter killed. It was not complete before we put the object. But when we put the object, it became complete. Why? Because it affected the killing. How does it affect the killing? The killing must have happened to something. And that something is an antelope. Who caused the killing? It is the hunter. So our subject committed an action which is to kill on an antelope. So our subject killed an antelope. You get it, Anisha? So we are saying that, so Anisha, we are saying that transitive verbs are verbs that require an object, like the verb to kill is transitive, so it needs an object to make it complete. However, when we look at this one here, the hunter laughed. This sentence here is complete. It does not require an object. Anisha, are you seeing this?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, so that means that this verb here, laughed, is an intransitive verb. The verb to kill is transitive. The verb to laugh is an intransitive verb. Now the trick, class, to all of you, not to Anisha only, to all of you, the trick is transitive verbs are the only ones that can be changed to passive voice. It is only the transitive verbs that we can easily change to passive. The intransitive verbs cannot be changed to passive. Reasons being they do not require an object. And remember, we said that in the passive voice, we change what was the object to become the subject because we are interested in the doer of the action. Right? Any other questions? Yes. Any other questions, Anisha? Now I can mute you.
Yes,
I can mute you now. Yes. Now, any other questions from anybody else? This is it. So we are saying that now this one here, we cannot change it to passive. The hunter laughed. Can we change it to passive? No, we can't. There's no way we can change it to passive because there's nowhere we are beginning from. The hunter laughed. Can you say laughed the hunter? We cannot because we're not interested in the doer of the action. We're interested in the action itself. So this sentence here is complete. Why? This verb here is intransitive. It does not require an object to make the sentence complete. But when we look at this one here, it is a transitive verb that has killed transitive that has an object here. Which object we are using in the passive voice that an antelope was killed. Do you get the logic now? All right. I can unmute you, all of you, so I can get your responses and see what we can do. So class, I'm asking for the last time. Have you understood these concepts now?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, for teaching us. God bless.
Right.
Bye.
Yes, teacher. Yeah.
All right, so we shall
Bye.
Thank you.
continue from here next time.
Okay.
Thank you, teacher, for teaching us. May God bless you.
Okay, you are welcome. You are welcome. So we shall continue from here next time from transitive and intransitive verbs.
Shall I exercise?
Yes, teacher.
I am going to refer you. Wait. Oh,
Bye, teacher.
because you have all gone off. No.
Bye, teacher.
Time for lunch.
Bye. Okay. Because you are going off very fast, I have failed to give the exercise. I am now seeing 92 participants from the 150 something. I am now seeing 92 participants. Now the exercise I will give in the next lesson. But for now, I want you to look at, go and revise transitive and intransitive verbs and see how they represent themselves in the English language. I love you all. Bye-bye.